we already have really dysfunctional global governance. The US, the indispensable nation for the global governance system to work, has been so reluctant to take on that leadership role.
I think there is a long-term damage to the relationship between the United States and China coming out of this crisis. I think there's been a decrease in trust for China, coming out particularly of questions about transparency, especially in the early stages of this pandemic.
And the potential, this trade conflict between China and US, a rivalry between China and US, is now doing a positive contribution.
So I think that's going to be a problem. It's going to make it even more difficult than before to have amicable negotiations between the United States and China.
The number one, number two economy, US-China, contributed more than 50% of the GDP, global GDP last year, about over 90% of global economic growth last year. When those two economies, when don't see eye to eye with each other, I see the great difficulty for a functional global governance. In the past, under President George W. Bush, US helped China immensely in fighting against the spread of SARS. And in Obama administration, China and US worked really together to deal with this H1N1, H7N9, and Ebola outbreak. For this kind of global pandemic, China and the US must work together. For global governance to work, for strengthening international organizations, number one, US may need to return to the leadership role, and US-China must work together. And I said in the past conferences, I don't see a plan B. There's only plan A available. We need to rise above our differences, really work together constructively. Whatever differences, we need to read a dialogue, sit down. In what way we can make it better, not pointing fingers at each other. I think this is going to be so essential for China, for US, for the global community. Not only for fighting against this kind of virus, but also for global economy to recover as well. So that's my hope. That's the way moving forward.
Well, let me try to provide some of my perspectives on the China-US relationship. I should say first that I've been a great fan of China for some time, particularly in terms of the great achievement of economic growth since the end of the 1970s and the putting up to markets and basically to capitalism. And in the recent trade war, I thought the United States was basically in the wrong. And I thought China was being more constructive in its thinking, even though there were issues about technology transfer and such that were pertinent. But given this success that China's had, I was really quite disappointed with their reaction early on with regard to the coronavirus pandemic. It seems like there was a lot of lack of transparency, which I think produced a lot of costs. I think it produced a lot of costs throughout the world. But even if that's correct, and there's some kind of guilt there, today, in thinking about going forward, there's really no way to do anything about that. Even if it's true that China did not behave optimally, particularly in the early stages of this pandemic. The situation I'm reminded of is the end of World War I and the Versailles Treaty in terms of the treatment of Germany. And some people thought it was really important to punish Germany because they viewed Germany as being guilty of having initiated the war. And there was a lot of pressure to put unreasonable reparations on Germany. And it worked out terribly. It was not a good idea at all. And many people believe that that action eventually led to World War II. And then I think it was better after World War II, where we didn't have that approach. The approach there was not to so much look at who was at fault, including Germany again, but rather to start from where you were and go forward in a mutually productive manner. That's what I think is the best thing to do with respect to this G2, with US and China. I think it's best to forget about who was guilty or not, and to start from where we are and try to work together to accomplish things in terms of global trade and international relationships, and working together in terms of health-related global issues. So that's what I think on these matters.
At the geopolitical level, I was hoping with the coronavirus, China-US can really rise above our differences, really work together, not only by the two, but also with the global community to fight this common virus and get the economy recovered. I think this is a beautiful opportunity here, okay? And secondly, I would like to see China-US really working together to strengthen the international organization, in particular, not only the WHO, but the G20, because that's so far the only effective global mechanism, make sure that the global coordination to promote the global economic recovery. It was truly good for the 2008 global financial crisis. Why we cannot go back, to improve the work?
Can I say,
Sure, Robert, yes.
about the coronavirus pandemic and this cooperation thing? Some aspects of it are very natural for cooperation. If you think about developing vaccines and treatments, which are obvious public goods, that's an easy area to have cooperation. You can get into trouble, however, when there's a vaccine that's discovered and you're trying to allocate the supplies if they're limited. That'll be much harder to cooperate with. And similarly, if you think of other kinds of supplies, even masks, there can be competition there rather than cooperation. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing that the US doesn't know how to make any masks, for example. But I think the coronavirus situation cuts two ways in terms of whether or not it promotes cooperation or something more like a competition that would not be so healthy.